American people are tired of war, tired of spending all this money on war, tired of seeing our soldiers being killed, and yet the war makers want to keep making war. So it's a little bit of a problem there, and they got to come up with a solution. And they came up with a solution, and that's drones, these unmanned aerial vehicles. It's really a brilliant solution. No Americans get killed because there's no American in the plane. There's nobody in the plane. And so you don't even have to go to Congress, because this isn't war, because the way war is defined is that Americans are at risk. And if Americans are at risk, no war.
They've long since stopped going to Congress, haven't they?
Yeah, right. And even if they go to Congress, Congress says, go ahead with it.
Yeah. Right.
All the money the war makers are paying to our Congress people. But so they also are a way to make war that the American people aren't going to know about, because it's in the hands mostly of the CIA. So here we are making war not only in Afghanistan, where some Americans might remember after 10 years we're making war there, but we're also making war in allied countries, in Pakistan and in Yemen and Somalia, and putting up these drone bases all over the world. And American people are la-di-la-di-la, there's Obama and he's getting us out of these wars, and isn't that great? So I figured I better write a book about it. And the book is a way to educate people, but it's also a tool to go around the country talking to groups, getting on radio shows like this, and trying to wake people up a little bit and say, hello, there's a new way of making warfare behind our backs, and it's making us less safe here at home, because every time we kill somebody with one of these Hellfire missiles from the drones, we're creating more enemies, and it's a way for the war makers to just keep the endless war going. So I hope that the book is a tool to get out there and start a new movement to say, let's stop this drone warfare.
Medea Benjamin, the other night when you were here, it was quite an impressive group of folks that showed up, a lot of activists, most from Chicago, but there were people already coming in town for the NATO demonstrations. And one of the things that I heard...
It was a special night.
It was a very special night.
Thank you to Heartland.
Ongoing line of wonderful events here at the Heartland, and it was pretty thrilling to have all these folks coming in, although I didn't get to focus on your talk as much. I was dealing with people coming in, wanting to get their food, finding a seat. It was
that
pretty
happens
packed.
In a restaurant, I bet, a lot. Huh, Michael?
Well, it's a good feeling. But one thing I heard you said, even liberal Democrats kind of support this drone activity.
Warfare.
And, you know, in the old days, us young radicals didn't like liberals. Now, kind of, okay, we're liberals, I guess, because the terminology has shifted. But when you said that, it really occurred to me.
Especially when it became a bad word.
Well, it has. It got to be a better word. Now it's like when the liberals, Katie, I'm trying to finish the sentence. And when the liberals in the Democratic Party support the drones, it makes me think, well, these really are not. That's not where we want to be.
Does it take you back to love me, love me, love me? I'm a liberal.
Yeah, it does. So what's the story on that? I mean, these people would probably in a poll be opposed to the war, but they're okay with messing with the so-called threat using technology.
Well, the most amazing thing to me in that poll that was asking the American people, is it okay to use drone strikes against terrorist suspects? So it's not that somebody found, okay, Michael, you know, you're a terrorist and we got all this dossier on you and we took it to a judge or a court and somebody said, yeah, you know, that guy's a killer. This is a terrorist suspect. And majority of liberal Democrats said, yeah, go ahead, drop those missiles on a terrorist suspect.
Yeah.
And did you hear the second part of that?
No, I didn't.
Not only that, they said it was okay to drop the Hellfire missiles on an American citizen overseas who we suspected of being a terrorist.
They didn't have a thing about it. It's okay to drop it on white Americans?
No, they didn't say white Americans. I wonder what that poll would have shown. But yeah, so far the Americans that have been killed on purpose by our Hellfire missiles have not been white.
Can you give us a little synopsis of how advanced and how rapidly this drone technology has advanced, and what's the scope of it, including how it's used here at home? We've already heard today from Gordon Thompson about its use in London coming up based on Dave Zirin's article.
Well, supposedly there's one overhead right now as we speak, and I see a little one right out the window. If you look out there, actually, because they can be as tiny as insects, they can be like butterflies, and they can swarm you, and they can be hummingbirds. I mean, all of the beauty of nature is being studied to turn into these drones. And then there's, of course, the big drones, and there's the super big drones. NATO meeting here this weekend is just agreed to a deal to buy $1 billion worth of drones. This is to keep the alliance strong. So it went from the Pentagon having maybe 50 drones in the year 2000 to having over 7,000 drones today, and then the CIA having its own fleet of drones, and Homeland Security having its own fleet of drones, and drones coming home very soon, now that Congress is forcing the Federal Aviation Administration to open up our beautiful skies to drones.
Maybe we should have our own drones to spy on those guys.
I'm a little lost around what happened to our civil rights, especially, this week. It seems like the first and most regular sign I've seen is protesting is a right, or protesting war is not un-American. I mean, it's like we're having to put up, guess what, reminding folks, one of the keys of a free society is being able to speak up. And with the unlimited detention kinds of aspects to the National Defense Authorization Act, or whatever they just went through, I'm a little concerned that we're raising generations of folks who never even saw good practice of human rights in our country, and good, habeas corpus was suspended for the better part of the first decade here. What the heck are we doing?
Well, yeah, and it's happening now under a constitutional lawyer. And I think, you start introducing this fear factor and building it up, and then the American people seem to say, okay, whatever's going to keep us safe, not recognizing that they're taking away so many of our basic rights, now to the point of we don't even have the right not to be killed by our own government's drones. So I agree with you, Katie. I think it's very scary. I think the fact that we're going to have drones flying over our heads as part of a surveillance society is something the American people ought to stop and think about. And what's very interesting is now some of the libertarians are saying, drones in our airspace? No way. And you got people like, that guy, the judge, Napolitano? Of the Fox News guy? News guy? No, you don't know him?
Say I don't.
Do you know Charles
Krautheimer?
Yes.
Yeah,
they're talking about shooting down drones. That if drones are in our airspace, that's very un-American, and the American Constitution never wanted us to be surveilled
so there
like
might
that.
be a meeting ground here.
Yeah, I don't think we would do the shooting down because we're like peaceful people.
Right.
Maybe they would do the shooting down. We'll go complain about it, and we'll try to change the regulations. But I think it is a time when libertarians, left and right, can come together and say, let's stop this from happening in our airspace. Now, wouldn't it be nice if they would also join us in saying, stop killing people overseas with our drones without any kind of due process?
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. This is, I'm going to go out on a limb here, maybe. I do like the president on many fronts. There's some things I'm critical of. He sat on this stage. We had him on the radio show. We had a little rally here. You referred to the constitutional lawyer who is under him. We do have these drones. And I'm just wondering, given that there are many people who listen to the show and people we know who are pretty critical of Obama, it's not clear whether they'll vote for him, though I think many will. Where are you at on how people should vote down the line? Is that something that you pay attention to?
Well, I don't tell people how to vote. I know what I'm going to do, and I would not vote for Barack Obama this time around, but I certainly wouldn't tell other people how to vote. I think more important than voting, because we don't have much of a choice. I mean, let's face it.
Well, we got the poster boy for the 1%.
I don't think a lot of people listening to your show probably want Mitt Romney, and you don't have much of a choice there. But what we do have a choice is what kind of movement we're going to build. And I think it's just about time that we recognize that if we want to have any strength as a social justice movement, we better keep it separate from political parties. So independent movement can push no matter who is in president to be a better president.
Right.
That's good.
No, you got support on that one. Yeah. So when you are here in Chicago, what are the events that people should be coming to today? And I hope everybody who's listening to us who is anti-war gets out and puts your body where your thoughts are this weekend.
Well, speaking of putting your body on the line, we are trying as Code Pink to organize one of those aerial images, where you lie down and you spell something out.
What are we going to spell?
Well, we're thinking of making it in the shape of a nice woman's frame with the bust and all, and it says "Bust Up NATO," and people will be doing it lying down, and we're finding a nice grassy area, and then a building where we can actually get into, because with this national security state, it's hard to get into some of these buildings to take the photo.
Right.
But we figure out harder things as Code Pink, so we'll make that happen, and we hope to have all of your bodies.
And when is that happening?
And that will happen on Sunday, probably before the march kicks off.
From Petrillo.
From Petrillo. And then today there's going to be a great action that is going to be starting at the to save the mental health clinic.
Good.
And that's going to Rahm Emanuel's house. And that's happening from 10 to noon. And then, of course, the big march on Sunday.
Yeah.
Medea Benjamin, one of the things I like to ask our guests about is how they got involved, where they come from, a little of the history. What led you to become an activist?
Yeah.
Well, my story is kind of a simple one. I grew up in a pretty conservative Long Island suburban Jewish household, and then the Vietnam War was going on, and I was in high school. My sister's boyfriend was drafted. He was a nice guy before he was drafted, and after a couple of months over in Vietnam, he sent her back an ear of a Viet Cong as a souvenir and said she should wear it around her neck.
Oh.
And that kind of changed my life.
Whoa.
So I figured anytime you take a nice boy and he turns into a monster that quickly, something's got to be wrong. And I've been working against wars ever since.
Wow.
Tell us a little bit about your activities around Afghanistan.
Well, we've gone as Code Pink to Afghanistan many times, and it's important to keep going to countries where we are doing work because we want to talk to people directly and hear what they have to say. Our last trip to Afghanistan, we met many women who said, look, we don't like the Taliban, but having the U.S. occupiers here is never going to make our country stable, because as long as the U.S. occupation is here, there are going to be people who are fighting against the occupiers, and then we're going to be caught up in this endless cycle of violence. We need to solve these problems ourselves. We need to get the U.S. troops out of here. And we need to protect our rights and gain our rights as women. So we join with people like Kathy Kelly and others who believe that rights have to be won by local people. Now, we can support them in many other ways, but not through the barrel of a gun or not through the Hellfire missile coming down from a drone. And also, as Code Pink, we've been traveling a lot around different countries as part of the Arab Spring. We were in Egypt during the uprising there. My bodyguard here and I were just deported recently from Bahrain, where we went to support the uprising there, and found that the American manufacturers of tear gas are doing just quite a wonderful business in Bahrain. Anywhere you go, you will get tear gassed. And we got deported for participating in peaceful demonstrations, but that's another example of a country where the Fifth Fleet of the Navy is based there. And the Saudis want to keep the Bahrain very close to the Saudi realm. So the U.S. government is turning a blind eye in the case of that uprising. But no matter where we go, we try to support people in their democratic uprisings, whether it's Bahrain or whether it's Egypt or whether it's right here at home.
So the feminist aspect to your work, which I love, because it's a word that doesn't get used as much as we'd like. There was a group this week that met. Were you part of the, I forget what it was called, the group that met the day before yesterday?
It was the Feminist G8.
Right, the Feminist G8, okay. What was that about, and how hopefully blissed out were you to take part in that?
Well, this is part of women in the Occupy movement coming together, and we've helped create something called Women Occupy. And it started out seeing that women were, in many of the Occupies, a bit uncomfortable with some of the ways that the Occupy movement was developing. For example, sometimes it was hard for women to feel empowered to speak out during a General Assembly. And it got to be issues around sexual harassment when people were actually sleeping out in the squares. And we realized that women wanted to come together also to be empowered to speak to the media. It turned out that in Wall Street, when they created a group that was going to speak to the media, 8 out of the 10 of them were men. And we said, okay, we got to train more women so they feel comfortable speaking out. And we've been doing that, working with Occupy movements around the country, doing skills training, and empowering a lot of really fantastic women.
Well,
and
it's
so
worked.
They came together and started to outline not only what were some of the problems and the ways to deal with them, but what were some of the issues on the women's agenda that we wanted to make sure were front and center in the Occupy movement.
I mean, it's sad in one way because, 40 years ago or whatever it was, when our anti-war movement, it was a big issue, to get the women's voices heard and not just being sent out to make coffee, literally. So what I want to observe is that the Occupy movement does have a lot of women's voices in leadership, and that's been a feature, and thank you for supporting that. Thank you for everything you do, Medea.
Well, what's one of the very exciting things I think about Chicago and this NATO summit is that I'm seeing the anti-war movement and the Occupy movement really working together in ways that I haven't seen yet. So this is very exciting. I think it gives new energy to an anti-war movement that was just kind of dying ever since Obama got elected. And this is giving us some new energy, and it's putting together these issues, whether it's the nurses' issues of saying stop the money being stolen from us for warfare instead of using it for people's health care, or all of the other ways that in these days we're bringing together the issues of we need money for people's needs, whether it's in Afghanistan or here at home, and not for warfare, and also bringing the climate issues in.
Yeah, I was just going to say all of the ball of issues that are related to growing food organically, saving small farmers, all of the environmental aspects of that, and I think also, fracking, the whole anti-fracking, the whole mountaintop removal movement, which we've covered a lot on this show. This is a unique moment for U.S. citizens to pull it together and
to try to take back some of our civil liberties.
Thank you.
Hallelujah.
On that note,
okay,
let's take back some civil liberties. The book that you want to check out and buy is Drone Warfare, Killing by Remote Control by Medea Benjamin. And the other thing you want to do this weekend, folks, if you hear this voice, get out and put your body where your beliefs are. Because no amount of coverage of the security measures should scare us away from our duty as citizens of the world to speak up and to be powerful citizens of the world, because you're out there, you got it. Exercise it. I'm sorry, I just rant sometimes.
Katie likes to talk. Anyhow, let's have a big round of
you.
applause for Medea Benjamin and her bodyguard.
And my bodyguard here.
Her bodyguard. I actually know this bodyguard. Worked in a couple films with him.
All right.
And on that note, we're going to bring up one of our favorite filmmaker. We're going to bring up Andy Davis. And if Mike Gray wants to come up too, we'll get another chair. But Andy, come on right up, and we're going to talk to you a little bit about what brings you to your beloved hometown. Andy actually lived in the building next door to the Heartland Cafe years ago. And is Mike going to come up too?
Yeah.
Oh, we got 20 minutes. So you decide when you're going to get up here, and we'll grab a chair.
The final Glenwood Sunday indoor market of the season is tomorrow. The indoor market, and that's a little announcement I had to make because the outdoor market starts in a couple of weeks.
Good morning, Andy Davis.
Wow, it's just wonderful to be sitting next to you two
I love that.
on a warm, sunny day in Chicago.
Get close to that mic.
Okay,
Fist
here we go.
away is
Here we
what
go.
they
Fist
tell
away.
me.
Okay.
I love telling a director of Hollywood films, to get close to the mic. That's
So
interesting.
Just to quickly summarize this meaning to me, behind us is the door that used to be a bakery where I came in when I was 7 years old. I came back from the hospital and came into the apartment on 1422 Lunt. My grandfather lived in the building next door.
You could probably get that apartment. It's about getting redone.
And I learned how to swim and ice skate at Sam Leone Park Beach. And so this is the old hood. And my father's memorial was actually in this place.
Yeah, that was a wonderful event for us to host.
Yeah.
Even with the hot dogs.
But that's not why we're here.
No, we're here because we knew you were coming to town, and I always like to grab you for a little bit of action on the radio or just to hang out with you. I think the backstory of this is back in 1968, there were some people, I think it was the film group, and I think you were working with Mike Gray and Haskell Wexler, and people shot footage that ended up being used in a movie that incorporated the Democratic Convention demonstrations. Some call them riots, some call them rebellions, and the work of people in Uptown with young Southern whites into a movie called Medium Cool.
That's right.
And now you all came back. I know Haskell Wexler. You said you're basically here to be his bodyguard.
Well, that is.
And I know. And
We're just using that term a lot.
and
today.
that he's here. And Mike Gray, who has been around. He did American Revolution 2. He wrote The China Syndrome. He's got a great book on the drug war. He's sitting here with a camera right now. Why don't you tell us why this coterie of great filmmakers and actors and people have come together here in Chicago during the NATO demonstrations?
Well, I think that, the idea that there are 3 or 4 generations of filmmakers working together to try to tell a story that should have been told already. In '68 we were trying to stop a war, and we're still trying to stop wars. And what it comes down to, Michael wrote an incredible book, a movie called The China Syndrome, which was about energy. And we're still fighting wars about energy.
Incredible.
And the reality is we have the ability to power the world right now without fighting for coal or oil or nuclear weapons. And it all comes down to